Hello friends, this is a video that I said I was going to do like a couple months ago and I'm now just finally getting around to doing it. So it's a reintroduction video. I've got a lot of new followers in the last several months. So I've done tags in the past, like how I tarot, all that kind of stuff, but it's been a hot minute since I've done anything like that. So some of these questions are going to be a repeat to previous tags I've done. But again, it's been a while. So for the newcomers, I thought I would do a reintroduction and I've written down some questions that I personally ask myself anytime I come across a new tarot tuber. I'm like, I wonder this, or what do they do with that? How do they do, where are, all kinds of questions. So I've been writing those down over the last couple of months, just trying to prepare myself for this specific video so I can answer the questions that I have about other people. I can answer them for you. So there's a couple categories. We've got the basics, we have decks, we have your practice, and we have YouTube and TarotTube questions. So I'm definitely going to be referencing my notebook throughout this. So if you see me looking down, reading, that's what's going on. So first things first, where am I located? This is a question that I always wonder about other people on TarotTube, because I'm like, are they close to me? Can we be friends? So I am located in the Greater Toronto area of Ontario, Canada. So I love coming across Canadian creators. I always kind of like have this delusion where we all get together and do witchy things in a forest, which is not reality. Because anytime I hear it, someone's from Canada, I'm like, maybe they're close to me, and they are usually not. Shout out to the two of you that sort of are, well, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, you guys are close to me. How did you come up with your channel name? So obviously the people who have channel names that are like their first name in tarot or whatever, that's pretty self-explanatory. Mine is not. So I thought I would just give you a little insight into how I came up with Coyote Tarot. Some of this may not be enjoyable for some folks, and I get that, but my dad was a hunter. He was an outdoors man to the core. So he hunted. And one of the things he hunted was coyotes, but he also had a respect for animals, and everything he hunted was used to the fullest. Fur, even the horns, antlers, meat, of course. So he didn't just hunt for sport. The coyotes, you can't really eat coyotes. You can use their pelts, but what would happen with the coyotes was farmers would contact him and say, listen, we have a coyote problem. They're killing off our livestock. And that's when he would go and hunt the coyotes. But he had a great respect for coyotes. There's a hat that dangles from my television that was his. My dad passed away a little over 9 years ago. So my mom, his wife, and my sister and I all picked one of his hats to keep, and I picked the one with a coyote on it. So it's hanging from my TV, and his license plate was coyote related. And there's a lot of coyote imagery for me surrounding my dad. So Coyote Tarot was born. So that's where I came up with my YouTube channel name. How long have you been reading tarot and oracle? So this is a question I've answered a lot, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but for those of you who don't know, it was during COVID and I was bored. We were in lockdown, and one of my local metaphysical shops was doing a Instagram live sale, which was new to me. I think it was new to a lot of us at the time, but that's how businesses had to stay afloat. And they were selling something called oracle decks, which I'd never heard of before. So I bought two. One was crystal related and the other was the Chakra Insights Oracle. The crystal related one is gone. I'm very picky, particular with my crystals, so I don't think I will ever find a crystal deck that fully resonates with me, so it's gone, but I do have that one still, and I bought them. So I had no idea what I was doing, and a girlfriend of mine, I was like, listen, I bought some of these things called oracle decks. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before, which obviously made her laugh. Can you help me? And she was like, absolutely. So she told me all about them, told me how to use them, obviously read the guidebook, especially with an oracle deck. So I got into oracles, and then tarot, it was something that I was a little bit afraid of. So I bought the Wild Unknown, because I had the Wild Unknown Oracle. It was like the third oracle deck I bought, and the Wild Unknown Tarot was 50% off. And I thought, I'm not ready for tarot. I don't know if I ever will be, but this is 50% off, so I'm gonna buy it. tried it, didn't work, went to the Plaidback RWS. That's a long story, very short, but that's how I got into tarot and oracle. It was an introductory through oracle, and then I graduated into tarot, and I have since taken a couple of tarot courses. So yeah, I bought my first oracle decks probably in the spring of 2020, and then shortly after would have been my tarot deck. So that's how long. And that is also answering the second part of this question, which is how did you get into tarot and oracle? And another question is, do I read for others? Yes and no. Like, I don't charge for readings. I would never charge for readings. That's not something I ever foresee in my future. But if I have friends, we get together, I usually bring a deck. More often than not, it doesn't end up happening. I don't end up reading because there's so many people. It's chaos. There's alcohol, which I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about reading tarot when I'm not fully mentally present. So most of the time it doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. And I do have friends who contact me and say, can you get your cards out? And we do just do little baby readings here and there. But I don't like to do predictive readings. And unfortunately, that's what people seem to ask for more often than not, is predictive readings. So I kind of struggle with that a little bit. I'm more of a self-reflection, self-care kind of reading girl. So that's the basics done. Now we're on to decks. Do you use oracle with tarot? Yes, I do. A lot of times I will just use tarot because it's more of a pain to get multiple decks out. All of my decks stay in their boxes for the most part, so I don't really feel like getting all of the decks out or going to all my different locations, which is another question, to get my decks. So most of the time it is just tarot, but I do read them together. And when I do read them together, I'm always like, gosh, I need to do this more. So I do. How many decks do you have? This is a question that I think there's some hesitation around answering this question for a lot of people. It opens yourself up to judgment. I'm going to be fully transparent. I have my list right here. Whoops. As I nail the tripod with my notebook. So currently for tarot decks, I have 46. And for oracle decks, I have 33. So more than I ever imagined I would have, but it is something that brings me joy, and I do use them. There's definitely some that get used less than others, or are not used as much as others, but they bring me joy, and it's not something I imagine I'll be doing forever. I don't imagine that 10 years from now I'll still be accumulating, so I'm kind of like, do it while I can kind of thing, and that's that. So I do hope that at some point it does die down a little, because you only need one, but we all know that that's not how this goes. So we'll see what happens in the future. This year I had a goal for less than 12, less than one deck per month, and I don't think that's going to happen. So this year has been crazy for decks. So just amazing decks coming out with creators and mass market alike. So it's going to be a rough year. We'll see how it goes at the end. Where do you store your decks? This is a question I ask every time I come across a YouTube channel or I'm watching someone on YouTube. I'm like, where do they keep all their decks? I want to see their storage, not because I'm nosy, but because I need ideas. I'm in a situation where all my decks have to be kept in my 10 by 10 bedroom. I share my house, so this is my space. This is where all of my things are, which is a problem. As we know, I also collect crystals. I am running out of space for everything. So my decks right now, obviously we've got some on these two shelves. These two shelves are the only one in this cabinet that have decks. I do keep my regulars in my nightstand, and I have another, it's a very similar shelf to this, but it has a door on it, and it keeps all kinds of stuff. It keeps regular books, it keeps camera accessories, it keeps photo albums, it keeps a bunch of stuff. And one shelf is dedicated to tarot and oracle decks in there. So those three places are the main places. There's a couple scattered throughout, like one in the purse, one downstairs on my desk, one in my office desk, but for the most part, that is where I store my decks. So that's what we have going on for deck storage. It's not looking good, friends. What do you look for in a deck? This is, if you know, it's like that Ariana Grande song. I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it. It's, I wouldn't say that I have a style necessarily. I do think I have a little bit of everything. I'm not into the esoteric style Terra Volatile. I would love to own that deck, but it's not me. I know that it's not me. So those kinds of decks, the Hexen, I think 2.0, love it. Not for me. So I try to stick to the basics. I try to stick to RWS. I'm not a huge fan of pips, so that kind of determines if I'm going to get a deck or not. But basically, if I like the artwork, which could be anything, it could be collage, it could be cartoony, it could be a mishmash of everything. If I like it, if it's calling to me, then that's that. So how would you describe your deck collection? Again, the Ariana Grande song. I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it. I can't come up with a single word. I don't think it's too erratic. I don't think it's too off the wall. I don't think it's too opposite end of the spectrum, but I also don't necessarily see any rhyme or reason to it. For a few years, I was really into colorful decks, like the Light Seers Tarot. I was really feeling the colorful decks, and now it's kind of not so much. Like, if there's too much color, although I did just buy Desert Illuminations, so that kind of wipes that out. But it depends. For a while, I was into collage decks. I got nothing. I don't really know how to describe my deck collection. Out of control, maybe? Do you have a go-to tarot and oracle deck? When you're stumped, when you're like, oh, I don't know what deck to use for this situation or for this reading, is there one I go to? Yes, I would say the Saint Soleil Beginner's Tarot. If I'm stumped, if I'm like not sure where I want to go, it'll be that one. Followed by the Sistine Tarot or the Golden Art Nouveau. Those are kind of like the top three that if I'm not sure what the vibe is, those are the decks I go for. As far as oracle, I really like my little mini rock pool decks. I've talked about that before. They hit every time. So if I'm not sure, I'm going for one of those little mini rock pool decks. Last question in the deck category is, do you rehome decks? And if so, what determines if it leaves your shelf? I don't like saying the word collection, so I say shelf. I try to remember to say shelf. I do rehome decks. Not very often. I think I probably rehomed maybe 6 total. So it's not something that happens often. It's something that I think about long and hard before I do it, because I never want to be in a position where I rehome a deck just to turn around and purchase it again, which I would not be against doing. And because I know myself and I know I'm not against doing that, I would rather not buy a deck twice. So I have a couple decks in purgatory now. They have been in purgatory for a long time, and I'm still sitting on them. So I'm not sure. I guess if I go a certain length of time without the desire to use them, then they're going to go. There's definitely, because I have so many, in my opinion, I have so many decks that there's definitely times where I feel called to use a deck. I'm like, oh yeah, I could really use this deck for this situation or for this time of year, for this month, whatever. And then I end up using something else. There's still a desire to use that deck. So I'm not going to rehome something like that, just because the chances of that happening are pretty high because I have so many. But if I'm not even feeling the desire to use something, if it's not coming to mind, or if it does come to mind and I'm like, nah, it's gonna go. I can't keep it, so it'll go. So that's what determines if it leaves my collection. Now we're on to my practice. So what does your tarot practice look like? So is it daily? Do you have a specific location that you read your cards in? The tools that you use? And when you have a situation that needs exploring, when do you read it? When do you pull your cards, kind of thing? So I'm not a daily card reader person. I try to be, and I fail every single time. It's just, I've come to terms with that. I'm totally okay with that. I'm not going to be a daily reader, and that's fine. So no, I don't read daily. Weekly, probably at least once a week, but definitely not daily. Yeah, more than once a week, but for sure not daily. Location. So this is something, when I first started reading tarot, I thought I had to have a sacred space. And in that sacred space was where I did all my sacred space things, which is right here where I'm sitting right now, which is on my bedroom floor. Not ideal, but this was kind of like a little altar space that I had set up for myself. I'm sitting on a meditation cushion right now. I've got all my things behind me on these shelves that are super handy to grab, and crystals and whatever, sprays, all that kind of jazz. And then this became kind of a pain. Like, I'd be sitting in bed and I would have to like get up and get out my meditation cushion, get out my tarot cloth, get all my things set up. And after a while, I was like, you know what? I don't necessarily subscribe to that belief that I should only do sacred things in a specific spot. So most of the time I read tarot cards in my bed. And that is why I moved a big chunk of my collection to my nightside stand, because they're easily accessible. When I'm feeling called to do a reading, it's mostly in the evening when I'm winding down for the day. That's when I feel called to do it. And I'm usually sitting in my bed, kind of either journaling or even watching something on TV. I will pause the TV to do a tarot reading because I think that's too distracting, but that's usually where it happens. And again, that's something that I'm okay with. It was a hard rule for me in the beginning, and now, no. Tools that I use. There are tools that I use almost every single time, depending on location. If I'm not home, obviously this isn't going to happen, but I have a Florida water spray that I'll spray my hands with, mostly to kind of just get the oil off my hands, because there is alcohol in the Florida water spray, but also just to cleanse my hands of any negativity, any negative juju that I might have on my hands before I handle my cards. I have a sage spray that I spritz the air with. Being in my bedroom, I can't really use a lot of anything that generates smoke, so Palo Santo, incense, anything like that. I used to a lot, and then I went to clean my ceiling fan blades and they were black. So after that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's probably all over my ceiling, it's probably all over my walls, and it's definitely in my lungs. So I was like, we're gonna go to a sage spray. So I spritz the air with my sage spray, and of course I use crystals. I am surrounded by them, and I have a select few that, not a select few, but there's definitely some that I would definitely use and some that I would definitely not use. Gonna have a video on that at some point. So crystals, sprays, spritzies, and that's pretty much it for the basics. There's other times when I might incorporate other things, but that's not on the regular. So those are my regular tools I use. So when would I read tarot cards? So the example I have is when I have a situation that needs exploring, yes. But again, I try to stay away from predictive readings. I think that that just sets yourself up for a lot of, I don't want to say disappointment. I don't want to say, I don't know what my beef is with predictive readings. It's just not something I'm comfortable doing. But I do like to do self-exploration, self-care, self-help, all that kind of stuff. So if I'm in a funky mood, I'll pull the cards at that point, see what's going on. If I had a bad dream, I'll pull the cards about that dream. The only kind of predictive style reading I'll do is if I'm stuck between a few situations or scenarios. I might say, what'll happen if I do this? What'll happen if I don't do this? What'll happen if I do this? What'll happen if I don't do this? That is absolutely predictive reading. So I realize I'm contradicting myself, but I take them with a grain of salt, and it's usually not for big decisions. Big decisions, I do not turn to tarot at all for. It's little mundane kind of things. Again, mostly in the realm of self-help, self-exploration, that kind of stuff. And the last question in the practice category is, what does a typical tarot reading look like with or for you? I feel like I kind of answered that question, but if my friends are asking me, again, I try to cleanse with something, whether even if it's just a selenite crystal, if that's all I have with me. I will bring the sprays if I'm going to somewhere where I know I might be asked. I will bring my sprays, so that's something I do. With or without other people, I try to stick to that. Again, the crystals, selenite is a good one to carry if I don't know what's happening and I don't want to lug a lot of stuff around with me. So the selenite crystal, but you know, I kind of sit, I shuffle, I ask the question while I'm shuffling, and if cards pop out before I've even completed asking the question, those go back in the deck. I do read jumpers, so that is part of what a reading with me looks like. I will read jumper cards, and that's pretty much exclusive. Wasn't like that when I first started reading tarot, though. I did the whole cut and pull from the top. Don't do that anymore. I prefer to read with jumpers. It's just how I like to read. And that's basically it. That's what a reading looks like with me. I'll ask my question. When I finish asking it, then the cards that pop out are the answer, usually 3 cards, and go from there. Last category is the YouTube and TarotTube category. So We have 3 questions here. What kind of YouTube content is your favorite to post, and what is your favorite to watch? I like posting monthly wrap-ups. I think that those are good for keeping in touch with the community, but also good for myself. I like to go back and re-watch some of my monthly wrap-ups because there are some times where I can't remember when I got a certain deck, even though I write it all down. Sometimes you can't find it, so I go to my previous videos and see what's going on. I also like it for memory keeping. I know that that's not necessarily tarot related, but it's been good to be like, oh yeah, that happened that month. And it kind of mentally brings you back there. So I like posting that and watching that. Unboxings and flip throughs, not too much unless it's a deck that's not common. So I did do, I can't reach it, the Ancient Greek Tarot recently. That's because it was a Kickstarter and I was actually looking for YouTube walkthroughs with that deck and couldn't find any. So I was like, well, I'll post it. And VRs are so fun. I do love to post VRs. I love to watch VRs. Watching unboxings, if it's a deck I'm going to buy, I will binge watch the walkthroughs and flip throughs just to make sure it's one I really want. So obviously watch those. Non-tarot tube related content is I like watching packing videos. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with packing videos. I don't know why. I'm not even going on a trip. I don't have any trips planned. And most of the time I'm not even going to these places that these people are packing for. Like they're like backpacking. I'm not going on a backpacking trip, but I'm obsessed with watching them. I like to watch fountain pen ink swatches. Love watching those. It's so weird, but I will watch it. I'm not a huge fountain ink collector, but I'll watch those. Wrote some down. Book reviews. I like watching YouTube content on book reviews and journaling content, journaling supplies. Crystals, people's crystal collections. I like watching those too. For some reason, YouTube is giving me suggestions of people's crystal collections from 3 years ago. They're always, without fail, 3-year-old videos. It's the strangest thing. But crystal collection videos are another one. And one just popped into my head and it's gone. Oh, other people's monthly wrap-ups. I like to watch other people's monthly wrap-ups as well. How did you get into creating a YouTube channel? This is also something I've discussed many times, so if it's a repeat for you, I'll try to keep it brief, but I think this is a good thing to talk about because if you're on the fence about starting a tarot tube channel, I highly recommend going about it this way. So again, we were in lockdown. It was lockdown times, weren't allowed to see our friends, weren't allowed to leave our houses, that kind of thing. So I had bought all these decks, and by all, back in the day, I probably had 5 or 6 of them, which I thought was a lot back then. And I was like, what am I going to do? I've taken a tarot course. What am I going to do with this? So I started doing private pick a card videos for my friends. So I would post the video privately and just send the link to my friends. And it helped me practice my tarot skills, but it also ended up connecting us without meeting in person, which was really fun. I had a Facebook group where we would all talk about it. I'll talk about the readings, the cards that they got, whether the message resonated with them or not. So that was really fun. And people reached out to me and they did say, like, you saved me back then because I was losing my mind. I wasn't seeing my friends. I wasn't getting out. I wasn't doing anything. And these videos really felt like we were hanging out, even though we weren't, which is what YouTube is. I'm sitting in my bedroom talking to myself, but not really. So they really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend if you're on the fence about creating a tarot tube channel or any YouTube channel, you do it privately first. Send it to your friends. Your friends can give you some advice, they can give you some tips, and go from there. And then once you start doing that several times, it gets you familiar with YouTube, it gets you familiar with editing software, with working, I just use my phone, so working with your phone on how to film with your phone and what works and what doesn't work. It's a great idea, and I think if you're on the fence, definitely try that method, see how it goes. And then I saw VR and I was like, I'm doing it. I think my first VR was only 10 decks, perhaps. That might have been my first VR, something along those lines. So I had to get in on that. I was like, yes. So last question, knowing what you know now about YouTube and tarot tube, is there anything you would do differently? This is something I wonder about other creators as well, if there's anything they would do differently. And my answer is rather complicated because it's yes and no. One of the things I struggle with is showing my identity on here, talking to you face to face. This is my face, this is my voice. And it was something that I kind of grappled with when I first started posting, whether or not I wanted to show my face, whether or not I wanted to have this kind of content, or just top down looking at hands. And I ultimately decided to show my face because I like seeing people's faces. I like feeling like I'm connecting on a face-to-face level with someone. So I made the decision to do that. Do I regret doing that? Ultimately, no, because I do like this type of content. Have there been times where I've thought maybe it wasn't the best idea? Yes. And that's just because stuff's been going on in my personal life. Not because of anything that's happened here, just stuff, I do fear that people I know will find my channel and they will think, what is she doing? Why does she have so many decks? This is ridiculous. And that is a fear. That is a real fear. And it's a risk I'm willing to take at this point. Obviously, here I am with my face. I've kind of toyed with ideas of, if I could do it differently, maybe I'd wear a mask, or disguise myself in some way, a la Carmen Sandiego. I don't know, but that is something I have thought about, and something it's too late, obviously, but if, I think it would be kind of cool to wear a mask or hide your identity in some way. But oh well. Other things, I would love to have a dedicated YouTube filming space. That's kind of out of my control. So here we are on my bedroom floor, but it's not a regret, but it's definitely a wish. I wish I had that. And obviously, like, my lighting situation is terrible today. Half my face is dark because all the windows are over there, but this is what I have to work with. So it is what it is. Goals, future goals, like down the line, future goals, obviously not anything I can do about it right now, but other than that, are any more, if I could do it differently? No, I don't. Other than that, no, I think I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. My channel is not something I advertise. If you're here, it's because you want to connect with like-minded people and you enjoy my content. And if you're not enjoying the content, you don't subscribe, you don't watch me. So that's kind of my mentality about YouTube and TarotTube. So that's that, and no regrets for the most part. So that's my introductory video. Like I said, I just wanted to post it because I've got some new followers, so kind of boring, just face-to-face, not really showing off any items or show and tell style things, but there we have it. That's a refreshed introductory video. So thank you so much for sticking around and hanging out with me and my face, and I will see you when I see you.